and pleased to
I am very
meet you
honored to
again.
talk to you. I often keep talking about you and your work.
Yes, as a futurist,
As a future.
but also as a solar scientist.
I am looking for
Uh-huh.
your work on the story of China, the future of China,
Yes.
and Confucianism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because in my opinion, the history of China has been formed by three forces:
Mm-hmm.
Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism.
Yes.
Now the culture of China kept changing
Absolutely.
after imperial power came,
Yes.
and they preferred one or the other.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But then now when the republic became,
Mm-hmm.
they don't know which of they. That is why the youth of China has shifted towards consumerism much faster
Yes.
than the youth of India did,
Right. Right.
and the older people of India did.
Yes.
No, this is what has been going on.
So the one of the major questions you raise is consumerism or humanism.
You know.
Yes.
So this is what is the problem. Now what I have been trying to understand is, when you will see that in this book also, difference with India is, India's continuity started 5,000 years before.
Right.
Till today, in temples and in places, there are
Yes.
temples and places
Yes.
where the people are reciting the same verses
Yes.
which their 2,000 years ago, their great-great-great-grandfathers were doing.
Profound sense of continuity.
The Vedas, the Upanishads.
Yes.
So, therefore, that is the profound difference between India
And China.
and the continuity of cultures.
Yes.
But only saving grace in China is that there were a lot of shifts in culture,
Yes.
but all the shifts took place between those three
Major
brothers.
traditions.
That's the only continuity of China. If they were not there, nobody will know where China will go.
Yes. Yes.
Somebody emphasized one, the others emphasized this, third one emphasized that.
Yes.
While in India, the continuity, for instance, the Muslims came to India. They built their mosques. The Indians said they had 5,000 gods already, one more. What difference does it make? Christians came, Parsis came, Jews came. Every time India never interfered. The second question was, in the case of India, India was all the way in history, till recent history, not what we call they were a power structure, or their culture was not continuity of power,
Yes.
or power in any form.
Yes.
It was a continuity of culture.
Yes.
It was called the Cultural Republic, because every village and every area of India was a republic, what we called rural republics. And those rural republics were independent in every way.
Yes.
How many invasions took place on India, Muslim and others? They came, they looted the country, they went away. India continued again, grew.
Sure.
Till the 16th century, India was one of the richest countries of the world. And then China, together, they were 37% of the world's wealth, even 16th century.
Yes. Yes.
So now the change is that because of the cultural continuity, India had problems, not having some problems with creating fast consumerism. But China has succeeded because the Chinese youth, after the communist war and the Chiang Kai-shek and Sun Yat-sen, they had nothing to look to, so they went and immediately reconciled and became a part of the consumerism. That is why the production increased in China. 40,000, 50,000 new factories were built. Millions of people were employed. And then they produced, which they sold to America. For that production, they got a lot of cash money, which is now built up into big resources of $2 trillion.
Yes.
Or more. The biggest problem of China today is this, that $2 trillion, quite large, 1.5 or more, is invested in America, American bonds, government bonds.
Yes.
As this fall is taking place, it is going to affect the stability of China.
Absolutely.
You get my point?
Yeah.
That is the worry of China today.
Right. I think if you put that in the context,
Because
ever since the Opium War, until the founding of the People's Republic of China, every 10-year period, there was a major change, major rupture. And since the founding of the People's Republic in 1949 until 1979, when we call the period of reform and opening, every 5-year period, there was a major change. So China, like India, had a very long and continuous history prior to the impact of the West.
that's right.
And yet, in the last 150 years, China went through major ruptures. And especially during the Cultural Revolution, when Chinese culture was totally, totally not only relegated to the background, but disintegrated.
That's right.
And as a result, and there's a vacuum.
That's right.
And the Chinese, in a way, had tremendous energy. The energy to create, but also the energy to destruct. And with that kind of energy, in the Cultural Revolutionary period, energy was very much focused on politics and the changing of the mindset for the revolutionary spirit. But then afterwards, when people felt Chinese economy was very much behind, the energy then was pumped into economic development, into market economy. And as a result, as you pointed out, the society was overwhelmed by consumerism.
So that's what you are seeing today.
Yes, and China, in a way, because market economy was a dynamic force for creating wealth, but at the same time, when market economy was transformed or degenerated into market society, in a sense, every aspect of the society, not only the government, the business community, but the mass media, and even the academic community and religion, all became somehow commercialized.
And it became a part of that consumer to support the system.
Yes, yes.
So what happened is this, all cultural aspect, one of the most important things, to carry the consumer system forward, is that all other systems, cultural systems, must be made subservient to the consumer culture.
But some time ago, maybe 20 years ago, I advocated to my colleagues in China and the intellectuals in China that we must take India as a reference.
I saw that.
As a reference society for many reasons. One is India as being has been the largest democracy, and therefore some people told me that there are more than 1 million NGOs.
That's right.
And
they work in the villages partly.
Then there are also there's a very large middle class, maybe 20 million, and of course Indian intellectuals are fluent in English, so they're very cosmopolitan. But to me, and of course now India, like what they call the BRIC, you know, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, they emerged. But so economically, especially in the software period, software area, and to me the most significant lesson for China is the relationship between the Indian intellectuals or educated people today and Indian civilization for a very long period of time. So you mentioned not only the temples or the gods, but dance, music, philosophy.
Dance, music,
Yes.
all cultural things have continued exactly the same
Yes.
as they were.
For
And
centuries.
they're all spiritual.
Yes. Very, very spiritual.
Very spiritual.
Right.
So therefore, India's stability comes from that.
Yes.
Now the most important thing, which many people do not know,
Yes.
and I have been studying that for the last about 7, 8, 10 years, there has been a kind of spiritual revolution in India.
Spiritual revolution.
There are 30 million people every day which go and watch spiritual programs.
30 million.
And all kinds of yogis, some fraudulent, but
Sure.
most of them very good.
Yes.
They are giving lesson after lesson, connecting them to India's culture.
Yes.
Story of the Ramayana, Mahabharata, Vedas, the Upanishads, and how India was, what they have done to it. Stop it, otherwise nothing will come to you. Now today my own contention is, India will be obliged to give the consumer system up. I have been warning
Obliged
to give up
that.
the communist system. I have a feeling that unless India, China, Russia, they do not come together, each one separately will be destroyed.
I sense, if you look at the spiritual force and the spiritual power, and India, of course, one of the great, you can say, the great nation that exports all forms of spirituality throughout the world. And Russia, in recent years, retrieved its own spiritual tradition in the Orthodox Christianity, but with rich tradition in literature, certainly in art, in dance, and many. China needs to revitalize its own spiritual tradition in an extremely urgent manner.
Because I give you the reason for that.
Yes.
In my opinion, there are three stages of human development. Material,
Yes.
mental and supramental.
Mental and
Supramental together.
supramental, that's spiritual.
Spiritual and spiritual.
Oh, you mean 4 stages?
Because you can be up to the mental,
The material, the
supramental,
mental, the supramental, and the spiritual.
These are the forces which are the human development of the future. Now what is happening is this: Europe has stopped at stage 1. They gave up number 2, and that's where they are. America pulled everything towards the material. There's nothing left to think, where do we go? That is when the IT industry came. It was Indian young people, they picked it up. In fact, I asked an Indian who is working in America, become a billionaire. I said, what did you do? He said, I went to India with $100 in my pocket.
Yes.
When I went there, some people helped me to take a job. And I went to that job. There were about 30, 40 people working there, the computers in front of us. While everybody was working, I did my work in 1 hour. And I was going around and seeing what they do. And I picked up all that. In a few years, I walked out. I
Started my own company.
borrowed money, few $1,000 from the bank, and set up my own business. And that is where I am today.
Yes.
So what was working? Mental.
Yes. Yes. I think in information and communication technologies, then the software, so the mental work becomes particularly pronounced.
And therefore, I want to also tell you, culture is the software
Yes.
on which civilizations are built. Unless you have solid culture, you get my point?
Yes.
Unless we have solid cultures, there is no chance whatsoever of creating great civilization. And there must be a cultural continuity, there must be a cultural pollution. It must contain all the three elements, material, mental, supramental, and spiritual. If a country can't do that, can't maintain that culture, and is swept off by the consumerist culture as America is, then you see what is happening.
Yes. I think all over the world, one deep worry of mine is this idea of modernization, very much defined in terms of westernization.
Material and material development. Nothing else. Modernization is that the man should take what I call a humanist path,
Yes.
which means a path which increases the potential of man. I want to shift from the money economy to the human economy. That where man is the center of things, not
Yes.
money. And when that happens, and man achieves his potential, you will have a different world. Now, where will it happen, in America or Europe? The only hope is India. So far as I am concerned, after visiting 96 countries, this is what I feel. Then I said, if India, China, because they won't let you do it, but I was right. They were destroying India from inside. The external forces. And I have been warning, they may listen to me or not, but they will, I think. They are coming closer. And India-China trade, which was $33 billion, is now $50, $60 billion in 5 years. So it's helping China also. So what I am trying to say is this. We have to think away from money as the symbol of power. We have to think of man as the symbol of power. We have not to think among the out of wealth as the greatness of man. We have to contain what are the spiritual other achievements. That's what we have to do. And unless the culture permits that, there is no chance of a culture becoming a great culture or a great country of the 21st and 22nd century.
We've been involved right now 2 meetings on the Indian and Chinese philosophical perspectives on knowledge, wisdom, and spirituality. Once in Delhi and once in Beijing. That was the beginning of a serious exchange of spiritual values and core values since the border clash in the 60s. And I do hope this will be able to continue. I understand you've been deeply involved with the dialogue among civilizations and also the importance of harmonious society all over the world. At Peking University, there was we call it Beijing Foreign University, together with the city, the municipal government and other organizations. Every year, there's a meeting in November on the question of dialogue among civilizations and harmonious society. That's the general theme. There are many different topics. And I realized, if you look at the world in terms of unilineal progression, defined in material terms, using instrumental, we call it instrumental rationality, then we realize there's so many things that the GDP cannot measure, such as happiness, friendship, and wisdom, knowledge, and human communication, and human development or human flourishing. So I agree with you. This is a central problem of our time. But in 1923, one great scholar in China by the name of Liang Suming, he talked about 3 different spiritual, different value orientations, the Western, the Chinese, and the Indian. So the Western approach was very aggressive. It's a Faustian drive, not only to understand, but to conquer and to subdue.
Even now it is.
Now it is. And the Chinese one is trying to search for some kind of balance. And the Indian tradition puts a great deal of emphasis on spirituality, what you call the supermental. And he said at the time, this is 1923, at the time China had no choice but try to learn from the West in order to survive. Science and technology and all these material things. But he predicted eventually when this consumerism, materialism became fully developed, then people began to realize there's not only emptiness of their own quest for meaning, but there's also serious problems of the world. Of course, at the time, he was not acutely aware of the environmental issue. But I think now we can say the prophetic vision is the environmental issue. So my sense is that maybe the 21st century, the prophet is the earth. And the elders in all the traditions, including indigenous traditions, may turn out to be teachers for the new civilization. And I think this may be related to your idea of humanism versus consumerism.
In fact, I must send you the paper. This is my last speech at the World Public, where I am going tomorrow, World Public Forum.
This is a foreign, you organized the forum.
No, I didn't. It was a joint effort where the bigger role was played by Mr. Yakunin, an eminent Russian.
In Russia?
Russia, very eminent man in Russia, very close to the power, very important man. And I, as a Kapur Surya Foundation,
yes,
which were doing research on solar energy, making speeches on India 2000. Somehow, in India, we met together and he decided, I supported the idea. And the India, this public forum, World Public Forum, a dialogue of civilization. So that was constituted. So at that time, from the beginning, I have been the co-chairman of the forum. Even till today I am.
This is the...
World Public Forum.
Yeah, how many, this is...
about 7-8 years ago.
7 or 8 years ago. So this is the 7th or 8th meeting.
So
but it met all over the world.
All over the world. In fact, last meeting was attended by 750 people from 62 countries. And you know why? For a very simple reason, that I raised the voice of dissent.
The voice of...
dissent.
The dissent.
Dissent. This is something wrong. What's going on? And this has to be corrected. And I said, Western, the United States are responsible. And all over the world, you know, 90% is dissent.
Yes, yes.
So all of a sudden, an interest was developed, and the forum came up with my effort, and largely Mr. Yakunin's effort, to where it is today. It is better place than any other organization in the world to fulfill what we are talking about.
Now we see also the same kind of voice of dissent.
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 That is, so long as I am concerned, it is the voice of total dissent.
Yeah.
But there may be other, we allow everything.
Right.
You come and speak anything you like.
Yes.
But ultimately, it is the voice of dissent which will prevail. That's what is happening.
This,
you get my point?
Yes. There's a strong feeling that there's a viability of the human species. And how much time we have, we do not know. And so in this particular situation, my sense is that all spiritual traditions, Hindu, the Muslim, Judaic, Christian, and all the spiritual traditions will have to go through a transformation. The transformation is to recognize the earth as sacred, or the earth as invested with spiritual value. And so the human, you know, there's a new relationship between the human and earth. So we cannot say, from the Buddhist point of view, wait for the other shore, or wait for the Pure Land, or for the Christian, wait for the kingdom of God yet to come. We have to care for the earth. So I liked the notion about humanism, but it's very different from the humanism
That I'm
of the of the enlightenment of the modern West, because that
only
humanism is secular humanism.
No, but that's right. Because why I raised that voice?
Yes.
Because the whole West consumerism has become the symbol. Money has become the symbol of power.
Yes.
If you are a good author, how much money are you making? If you are a good artist, what value your painting they're selling at? In other words, put all the direction of thinking into consumerism. And go and make money, and that's where you are. And the end result is this. They have brought themselves to this pass and reduced the world to this position as it is today. We have to correct this position. And in fact, my next move is to speak about the challenges, major challenges, to bring about the transformation.
Yes.
Because this won't work with small palliatives. It is change, complete change. And what do we need to bring about that change? That's what it is.
I think at this juncture, one of the great questions is rethinking the human. You have to rethink what does it mean by being human.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think normally, if you follow the enlightenment of the modern West, and the human is a conqueror, the human is an aggressor, the human has power over everything.
Everything.
Knowledge is power.
You control it,
Yeah.
and the whole thing goes.
And right now, the idea of the human, I think the human is an observer, but also an appreciator.
And a victim, and also a victim.
A victim too, but at the same time, in a positive sense, the human is a participant in this creative transformation. And the human can, I don't know whether you accept this idea, can be a co-creator of our universe.
In fact, the whole structure of humanism
Yes.
is built around this.
Around
What
the
I'm
idea
talking
of
about.
participation.
Of participation.
Yes.
That, first of all, build every man.
Yes.
And I am saying this is the only way you can bring the world humanism
Yes.
together.
Yes. And in this sense that the human is also the worst destructor. And this very old saying in the ancient Chinese tradition that heaven creates, human completes. All disasters, natural disasters, cannot wipe out the human, except the disaster that is man-made. The man-made disaster is something that we cannot escape. And right now we are in a situation where the dilemma we face turns out to be man-made. So one, at least slim of hope, optimism, is to say, since we got ourselves into this kind of mess, we, in a united, integrated way, should be able to get out of it.
That's right.
And that's the question about humanism. So there's one scholar, I don't know whether you met him, he's now the chair of the Council of Indian Philosophy by the name of Balasubramania. Balasubramania has made the observation is that, really the so-called Confucianism, which is a humanism, it's not a secular humanism. It should be a spiritual humanism.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes.
That to the humanism which allows complete potential for man,
Yes.
that he can start from material,
Yes.
goes to mental and supramental,
And to
arrive
spiritual.
at spiritual.
That's right.
Every human being must have the opportunity to do that. If you make them consumers, they are only fit to be consumers. The whole society will be moralized and they will lose the brain to do anything in the future. That's exactly what is happening. Now, then you stated that even only man can change. This is precisely what I am saying. The movement, the humanist movement at an individual level,
Yes.
defining it as the potential of man up to the spiritual level.
Yes. Yes. Then
And then more and more people will become up. They are putting the pressure now. Where is the pressure coming? Not from me or you. The pressure is coming from
every person.
the people.
Yes.
They are saying, what the heck is going on? So what I mean, therefore, is this is the answer, and we have to find ways and means of implementing it, and in whatever form we can do. And in my opinion, the best bet today is if these three are united, no force on the earth. India, China, Russia can challenge them. No force. If tomorrow they get together, you know what will happen? Everybody can be told, stop it. And nobody dare challenge this. Because anyone separately can't do it. If China did it, they will destroy China. If India did it, they are destroying India. If Russia did it, they are destroying Russia. So I, therefore, but once they are together, and they are doing their best to stop it from getting together. They are stopping it intentionally with force, with everything. And we have to see that we should overcome all that. And we should be sitting together, solving the problem of the world and saving the world. Today there is nothing which can be done. I also tell you a small story. A young boy went to his father and said, "Father, from tomorrow I am not going to school." He said, "You foolish fellow, what are you going to do? If you stop going to school, how are you spend your time? How are you going to your future? Nothing is safe." He said, "But why are you not going to school?" He said, "There is a boy who failed every time in one class. And he's a huge, big, hefty fellow who is, he got an inferiority complex. That the young boys are moving rapidly up and he is the only one left behind. And so they are jeering at him. So what he does is, every now and then where he has a feeling that this fellow is not supporting him, he goes and slaps him and beats him up. So he said, "What are your brothers doing?" He asked him. There are two more brothers. He said, "They are afraid." Then I said, "What are all these students, young students doing?" He said, "They are afraid. One man is ruling." So he then went to his room, brought a bundle of sticks and placed in front and took one and gave it to the son. The son break it. So the son just easily break it. Then he picked up two and gave it to the son. The son tried very hard to break it, did not find it easy. Then he gave him 3 sticks.
You cannot break.
The son said, "Papa, I can't break it." He said, "You understand?
Yeah, yeah.
If you 3 brothers stand together, no force in the world can be created for you."
But one thought I have is that we shouldn't repeat the psychology of domination or the mental sense of domination of the other nations. So this kind of alliance will have to be open. In other words, it's inviting.
That's right. That's right. It should not be a secret alliance.
That's right. Because right now in China, and I worry that people become so proud, they want to take on some of the great powers alone. This is not going to do well.
And they are publishing now, even the papers and the information in the press and all the paper.
Yes.
That according to the world that is happening, China will be number 1 in a few years. So that is the greatest threat to China. America will be number 2. So India will be number 3. And Russia will be number 4. Even in America they accept this. So what will happen? They don't want China to be number 1 and leave America behind. Then they don't want to see India to catch up, because it goes above all the countries of Europe and come closer to the United States. And then Russia, which has the power and military and defense and everything, plus the will. And the new backing of so-called Orthodox Church. So this is altogether going towards spiritualism. Altogether being forced.
Even the president is a member of the Orthodox Church,
the church.
From Russia.
So you follow my part. So this is what is happening. And we should encourage this to happen. I have been doing that. I have done it in, even they published my comments in the People's Daily and the China Daily and others. And they know my views. The last visit of the Chinese to World Public Forum, there are about 20 of them. After the meeting was over, as we said something in the meeting, that one was the Buddha, some of the thoughts of Buddha, what did he say and all that. So many of them came to me one after the other to take pictures with me and pictures together. I said, why is this? He said, we love what you said. So inside there are a large number of Chinese also who are thinking like that. But the question is, the bigger pressure on the top is consumerism, and particularly now, challenged consumerism, weakened consumerism, unemployment, all these things.
But India, China, and Russia, at this juncture are going full force towards commercialism.
But I tell you one thing which is happening. You know, this is, I agree with you. But the big problem is, they are going in the direction of what you say, commercialism. India is also going. But there is one difference. There is a powerful spiritual religious forces emerging behind the scene, on the television. Now this one man, he has gone around the world. He has 18 million followers. He is a yoga teacher. And from yoga, he has...
This is also very pervasive. The quest for new forms of spirituality. But I think another thing is your view as a futurist. And if the world is going to be peaceful, and the three powers now, I mean, we can say spiritual powers, India, China, and Russia, if they are united, and they can have a very strong force in turning the tide around.
And they're able to protect themselves.
And they have to transform themselves first from commercialism to a form of humanistic spiritualism or spiritual humanism. Now, I think, you know, the shape of the spiritual humanism in the 21st century involves at least 4 dimensions. One is the question of the self, integration of the self, not just material, but mental, supramental, and spiritual. But the self is always central relationships, relating to many other selves. So the question about the self and the community. And then the question about how human species will be able to relate in a sustainable way with Earth, with nature. And then finally, the whole question, I think India is a paradigmatic example of this, is the relationship between the human heart and mind and the way of heaven, or the transcendent, or the source of spirituality. And now the question I have is, there are many other spiritual traditions, including Islamic, including the Judaic and others. How would you, from a futuristic point of view,
the question is very simple. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Islam, yes.
The fundamental problem is, in Hindu thought, they think man himself is a god. Man himself or herself is a god. And he can convert himself to God, to mix with that world conscious spirit, what we call God, somebody calls something else. Then the human being have to raise himself to that level of spiritual level, and then this consciousness spreads to a large number of people. Now this will not challenge that bigger consciousness. This will be like the river.
Yes.
which
Yes.
starts, which goes to the sea, becomes a part of that consciousness, but can't make that conscious itself. So that means they are also saying the same thing, he will not become God. But they say saying it differently. Now the West and these religions challenge this. They say no, because they say one God, because the whole thing, the sector is built on that. Now, if they change, unless they change that, that's what one of my things tomorrow. Unless they change that, that which I call the challenge of science and science and tradition and religion. What is the conflict unless it is resolved? You cannot have peace. Now they are not willing to accept this. Then they say India is small, they should come and accept what we say. Now Indian cultural tradition, Indian spiritual fight now which is emerging, they will never accept this. Because, and then their problem is, Indian philosophy, Indic civilization is the only one which alters with science, from Newtonian science to the science of Einstein and beyond, Heisenberg, uncertainty principle. Now this evolution which is taking place is going to, in many ways, define the future. That's what I say, India's future is being defined by these factors. That they can come to approach the challenges of science.
And they can both appropriate and at the same time compatible. But I think there's also a major change of the scientific mind. Because the old positivistic science, anything that you can feel, you can quantify, you can scientific, which is outmoded. And we have a much broader vision of what science is. Because the more we know that we do not know, there's a sense of humility. And that sense of humility will help the world to realize the limitation of the human. Maybe I return this question. If man is God, potentially, that's the relation between, say, Atman and Brahman.
And the consciousness in general, total consciousness.
Yes. And no matter how hard we individual or human beings try, there's always a vision that's broader. So we need to be, exercise humility and appreciation of something that we are not the conquerors. We are the observers, appreciators, and participants. Yes. And I think your vision, I very much share your vision of futurism with only one caveat. That is, I think the unification of three major spiritual traditions, Indian, Russian, and China, ought to be open, pluralistic, and self-reflexive, self-critical.
India adjusts. India has very great flexibility.
Yes, absolutely.
In the matters of religion, culture, and spirituality.
Tolerance.
If they find tomorrow that the Chinese is better, Confucianism and the other thing put together, Taoism is better than Indic civilization, their own tradition, they will say that is our tradition.
Yes.
That is God. This then becomes God and they make a picture of it for everybody to worship. So there are 5,000 gods floating around.
Yes.
Some represent intellect, some represent physical power, some represent protective role. So each god, the god represents the power of nature.
Yes. Yes.
And that consciousness.
That it's both a comprehensive and integrated vision, and that comprehensiveness and integration will allow the humanism to flourish. That may be our great hope for overcoming the incredible power of commercialism.
Dialogue.
Yes.
Through dialogue. That's what my purpose is.
Through dialogue.
Through dialogue. And so this is what is happening. And this is through dialogue, and we are trying to do that.
Well, what are the two dialogues again?
Dialogues of this, number one, this.
Yes.
Number two, consumerism. The armament protected consumerism is the world which I have
Yes.
rejected. You cannot protect this consumerism without armament. You follow my point? Yes. You cannot protect. Third one is culture. Culture is number one. Without the transformation of culture, nothing else will change.
Yeah, I fully agree with you there. Yeah.
Okay, then good to speak with each other.
Thanks a lot for talking to you.